Let me read to you a passage from the 7th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 7 to 12. It's the Gospel for Thursday of the first week in Lent. St. Matthew writes, Jesus said to his disciples, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. To him who knocks it shall be opened. What man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, would hand him a stone? Or if he were to ask for a fish, would give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good things to your children, how much more will your Father, who is in heaven, give good things to those who ask him? Whatever then you would have men do to you, do you also to them. For this is the law and the prophets." That's from Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 to 12. And what does it suggest to us? Well, there are quite naturally two tendencies in what we might call natural man's sense of God. There is the tendency, probably the more common, to picture the Supreme Being as distant. Broadly speaking, he creates or organizes the world and then withdraws with his work done. Lesser spirits then enter the scene and dominate the religious life of the society. The Supreme Being in that particular case is remote. But there is a very different tendency, which is to imagine the Supreme Being as very near, but I suspect without much of a face, as we might put it. He is a vague presence and is often sensed to be in the conscience, monitoring and warning. Consider, for instance, the religion of Deerslayer in James Fenimore Cooper's novel, the novel called The Deerslayer. For Deerslayer, God is providence. He is the creator of the woods, the rivers, and the world around. And above all, he is the one who is present in man's conscience. At one point in the novel, Deerslayer says it to Judith, that conscience is his king. But throughout this novel, in which the religion of the protagonists features, and in which Christianity is the religious backdrop of the heroes, Christ, the person of Christ, is never specifically mentioned. When this form of religion is set against the gospel texts, the tremendous novelty of the Christian revelation stands forth with clarity. God has a face, and a very loving one at that. His face, as Pope Benedict has often said in his writings over the years, is the face of Christ. He who sees me sees the Father, our Lord says elsewhere in the Gospels. God our Father is not remote, nor is he merely a vague, even if very real presence. He is highly personal, and the image of him has appeared and has lived among men. His word, in and through which he reveals himself, became flesh and dwelt among us, speaking to us of God our Father. In our gospel today, he tells us that he responds closely to our pleas. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. To him who knocks it shall be opened. Just to return to the character of Deerslayer that I mentioned earlier, one whom we might dub a saint of the wilds, with a moral character in the novel very much larger than life. I do not recall him during the tale ever actually asking his God for a favour. Deerslayer lacks the human being's profound sense of need, leading him to appeal to God. He does not seem to pray much except in the vaguest sense, even though he is very religious in disposition and sentiment. He is, of course, a myth, but one that's indicative of a view of religion. By contrast, our Lord tells us to ask, to seek, and to knock at the door. We have our daily needs, and we are profoundly conscious of our poverty and our vulnerability. Our Lord tells us that we have an Almighty Father, and that Father is the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. He attends to all our requests, and we may approach him with confidence. By turning to him, we shall find, we shall receive. The door will be open to us. What this will mean in the concrete, of course, is a further matter, because God is all-wise and he knows what is best for us. What we ask for in the concrete may not at all be good for us. And in any case, let us beware lest the God we address be a mere figment conjured up by our own desires. In any case, our Lord's words are clear. If we humbly place ourselves in the presence of God our Father, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, and make our requests, we should feel confident. We ought pray with persistence, never losing heart, as our Lord says, and trust in the love and power of our Father in heaven, and do so in union with his divine Son, Jesus Christ. Time and again, we hear stories of prayers being answered, either quickly or over the course of time. The key is to take our Lord's words to heart and to pray as to the God Jesus himself describes, the God who is our Father, a Father wanting to hear and answer our prayers, the God who is able and desirous of giving us what we need and far more besides. Our Lord's words in today's Gospel passage speak to us about God and about the marvelous power of prayer. The model of our prayer is, of course, the Lord's Prayer. May your name be held holy. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is done in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our offences, as we forgive those who have caused us offence and injury. And keep us from evil and temptation. So then, let us fill our lives with persistent and trustful prayer.